we ran out of time a little bit on the other day, so we were trying to solve for x and y here using vertical angles theorem. And every time, I want you to think about this. I'm going to redo this one we did in class. Some of you were confused. Every time that you have this situation where you have intersecting lines, the vertical angles are congruent. So 2x plus 21 equals 4x. And the adjacent angles are supplementary. So 2x plus 21 plus y equals 180, or y plus 4x equals 180. Fits our rule of setting stuff equal to each other or equal to 180. So get all your, just like before with our proofs we talked about, get all your information there and then decide what can I do. I can't solve these because they have two variables, so I solve this one first. And some of you, when you solve it, you end up losing your equal sign. So I'm going to suggest that you always bring the variables over, even if it means an extra step. So we get something that is not a nice number that you like. You get 21 over 2, which actually is a nice number when you need to plug it back in. So I know x is 21 over 2. I can plug it back in here or plug it in here to find y. I'm going to plug it in this equation because it's easier to find y, because y is basically already by itself. 21 over 2 times 4. 21 over 2 is 10.5, but I also know that this 2 cancels out here. Gives me 42. So I have y plus 42 equals 180. Subtract and get y equals 138. So 138, 42, those add up to 180. Plug it in here. You could also get a schematic and plug it in there and check. So you could have plugged in right here. 2 times 21 over 2 plus 21 plus y equals 180. So 21 plus 21 plus y equals 180. Get the same answer. Second problem, before I try to solve anything, I'm going to set everything up I know. The vertical angles are congruent, and the adjacent angles are supplementary. Now I have equations I can solve. So I'm going to subtract 2x. Again, don't lose your equal sign in this. X equals 40. Take your x equals 40, plug it in for x. Y plus 3 times 40 equals 180. So y equals 60. If you plug in there 60, we said x was 40, so 3 times 40 is 120. Just make sure that those add up to 180. 2 times 40 is 80 plus 40 is 120. So all the numbers work out. Again, same thing here. Stuff that's across from each other, vertical angles, congruent. Adjacent angles, supplementary. You can also do y plus 36 or 136 equals 180. So in this case, you have a couple equations you can solve, because I can solve this equation right now. So y equals 44. 44. You learn to subtract. Those add up to 180. So I could take out 44 right here, take out the y and put in 44. So 6x plus 16 plus 44 equals 180. So that's equal to 60. X equals 20. Go and check. 6 times 20 is 120, plus 16 is 136. those add up to 180. So I'm finding X, got it, Y, got it. If you want to check, plug in your 20 right here, which we already did by looking at the angle. I'm going to skip over to this is just the algebra part. We'll get to the proofs together a little bit. So these are all proofs that we'll talk about. Some more of the algebra practice. So look at everything you know here. I know that these are vertical angles. So Y is 65. And I know these add up to 180. So X is 180 minus 65, which is 115. And once I know what X is, then I know what Z is because they are vertical angles. That just kind of works its way around. This one is more like the problems we did before. But same situation, stuff across from each other is equal. And stuff that is adjacent adds up to 180. So you could add any of these around. I'm going to pick these two. And you might wonder why I picked those two and not these two. Well, I want an equation that only has y's in it. I can only solve stuff that's one variable without doing a system. So I can solve for y using that. And then I'm going to write another equation over here, which adds these two. So my equals didn't really help. I can use those to check if I want to later on. But this is what I'm going to use to solve for x and y. So I have 5y plus 5 equals 180. So y equals 175 divided by 5, which is 35. Go to solve this one. 4x plus 20 equals 180. 4x equals 160. X equals 40. So now you can use these original equations to check, take your answers and see if they make a true statement. So if y is 35, 35 plus 20, x is 40, is that equal to 40 plus 15? 55 equals 55. So there is a way to check that. So it says, what definition or theorem in number 2 did you use to justify to set up your equations? Well, this across the way would be vertical angles theorem, or vertical angles congruent, and this would be linear pair postulate, definition of supplementary angles. All right, number 3. These are a little more complicated. But just look at everything you know. Let's see what we can do here. So I know that these 3 things add up to 180. So I have one equation, x plus 90 plus 20, that equals 180. I'm going to be able to solve that for x. I also could have written x plus 20 equals 90. And I know y plus z plus 5y plus 10 equals 180. Those add up to 180 there. I don't have a vertical angle here because it's bent, but I do have vertical angles here, which helps me because now I know that y is 20. That's a nice equation. It's already solved. So y is 20. Check. And I keep thinking about this and I say, well, x plus 110 equals 180. So x equals 70. Check. Now I want to put those things on my picture. So if this is 20, and this is 5 times 20 plus 10, 5 times 20 is 100. 100 plus 10 is 110. Now I know these three add up to 180. I can go over to my equation and plug all those in, or I can just say these have to add up to 180. I'm going to use some common sense. 120 plus, or 110 plus 20 is 130. That means z has to be 50. And then you can use this equation to verify your answer. So always the same. Write down what you know is adds up to 180, what stuff is equal. Before, same situation, only have a couple variables. Looks like it'd be getting kind of scary. So 3x plus 8 equals 5x minus 20 because of vertical angles theorem. And 5x plus 4y plus 5x minus 20 equals 180. Linear pair postulate. So those two things can be set up. I could also write these two, but I don't want to write every equation possible. I don't need to do that. So I'm going to solve the one I know how to solve first. Don't lose your x sign. 8 equals 2x minus 20. Add 20, add 20. X equals 14. So then you can go down here and plug in 14 for x. Two places, so 5 times 14 plus 4y plus 5 times 14 minus 20. And then just be careful simplifying. 70 plus 4y plus 70 minus 20 equals 180. These two are 140 minus 20 is 120. Four y equals 60, so y equals 15. Check it on your picture. 5 times 14 plus 4 times 15. 3 times 14 plus 8. And 5 times 14 minus 20. And then if you want to check and find out what those numbers are, this is 42 plus 8, this is 50. 70 minus 20 is 50, good. And so I know this should be 130 here. Let's make sure 70 plus 60, 130. So plugging back in, you can find out any of those answers. And that's it for the equations. We'll talk about the proofs on another video.